Palma de Mallorca, October 1977. Lufthansa Flight 181, a Boeing 737, takes off for a routine return trip back to Frankfurt. On board are 91 people, mostly German tourists returning home from their autumn holidays. 30 minutes into the flight, while cruising over the French coast, the calm shatters. 4 passengers jump from their seats, drawing Soviet-made Tokarev pistols and hand grenades. They storm the cockpit, kick out the co-pilot, and press a gun directly to the head of Captain Jürgen Schumann. The hijackers announce they belong to the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. They lay out a list of absolute requirements: $15 million in cash, the immediate release of 13 prisoners in West German and Turkish jails. If these demands aren't met, they promise to blow up the plane with everyone on it. With 91 lives now hanging by a thread, the situation instantly escalated from a localized crime into an international crisis. What began as a peaceful vacation flight was now a high-stakes leverage point in a negotiation spanning 3 continents. To understand why these specific prisoners mattered, you have to look at the German Autumn. West Germany was reeling from a wave of domestic terror led by the Red Army faction. This radical group had spent the year assassinating judges and kidnapping industrial leaders, all in an effort to collapse the West German state. The government also carried the heavy scars of the 1972 Munich Olympics. During that crisis, a botched rescue attempt led to the deaths of 11 Israeli athletes. Later, authorities had actually released the perpetrators to satisfy the demands of a different hijacked plane. Chancellor Helmut Schmidt looked at this history of concessions and drew a hard line. He decided the country would no longer yield to terrorist extortion. Releasing the Red Army faction leaders would only invite a permanent cycle of kidnappings and hijackings. This policy created a high-stakes tactical paradox. By refusing to negotiate, the government was now obligated to find a way to extract 91 hostages from a moving, rigged aircraft by force. Denied permission to land in almost every neighboring country, Flight 181 spent days bouncing erratically across the Middle East. Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Kuwait all blocked their runways. Running critically low on fuel, Captain Schumann eventually forced the plane down at Dubai International Airport. On the tarmac in Dubai, the ordeal turned into physical torture. Outside, the heat reached 49 degrees Celsius. Inside, the hijackers shut off the air conditioning, turning the narrow cabin into a furnace. Passengers sat in total darkness, suffering from extreme dehydration, with no access to water or toilets. The attackers systematically broke down their captives. They bound passengers to their seats with neckties and belts so tightly that limbs turned blue from lack of circulation. They even doused the hostages and the cabin in divvy-free alcohol, ensuring any spark would instantly incinerate the entire aircraft. The flight eventually forced another landing in South Yemen. After Captain Schumann was allowed outside to inspect the landing gear, he pleaded with local officials for help. When he re-entered the cabin, the lead hijacker forced him to his knees in the center aisle and shot him in the head. The execution of the pilot ended any hope of a peaceful resolution. When the hijackers dumped Schumann's body on the runway at their next stop in Somalia, it signaled that a mass execution of the remaining hostages was now the only outcome left. While the hostages suffered, the West German government was executing a methodical waiting game. They deployed special envoys to project total compliance, faking negotiations for the release of prisoners just to keep the hijackers from detonating the explosives. Intelligence was also being gathered from the inside. Early in the crisis, during a refueling stop in Rome, Captain Schumann had managed to drop 4 cigars from the cockpit window. This simple signal told the security agencies exactly how many hijackers they were up against. West Germany then dispatched GSG-9, its elite counter-terrorism unit. 30 commandos boarded a separate Boeing 707 and began shadowing the hijacked plane across its erratic flight path, staying just far enough away to remain invisible on radar. The commandos used the standoff in Dubai to prepare. They located an identical Boeing 737 on a nearby tarmac and drilled their assault tactics relentlessly, memorizing every dimension of the cabin and every blind spot on the airframe. The government was intentionally stretching the clock. By delaying the strike, they ensured the hijackers were physically exhausted and that the GSG-9 team had the exact operational intelligence they needed to strike. The final stage began on the night of October 17th. Flight 181 was parked at Mogadishu Airport in Somalia, completely dark, after more than 100 hours of hijacking. To mask their approach, the The Somali Air Force flew MiG fighters in repetitive patterns over the dark Mogadishu airport. Under the cover of that engine noise, the GSG-9 aircraft landed 2 kilometers away with all its lights off, taxiing silently to a remote area of the tarmac. Somali soldiers lit a massive bonfire away from the runway, pulling the hijackers' attention toward the cockpit. Meanwhile, the commandos moved like shadows, wearing rubber pads to muffle their footsteps, advancing directly into the blind spots beneath the Boeing 737. At 2:05 a.m., the breach began. British SAS experts threw stun grenades at the front and middle of the aircraft, producing a blinding light and a deafening blast. Before the hijackers could recover, the GSG-9 teams scaled aluminum ladders and forced open the emergency doors. The assault was over in 7 minutes. The commandos neutralized 3 hijackers and captured the 4th before they could trigger the perfume-soaked explosives wired into the seats. Operation Fire Magic succeeded because it combined total psychological deception with overwhelming kinetic speed. By the time the hijackers realized they were being attacked, the mission was already finished. After 6 days and 10,000 kilometers, the 90 surviving hostages stepped onto the Mogadishu tarmac. They had endured physical torture and the execution of their pilot, but against all odds, the rescue was a total success. The rescue broke the Red Army faction's leverage. Upon hearing that the hijacking had failed to free them, the group's leaders, Andreas Bader, Gudrun Ensslin, and Jan Karl Ruspe, realized their extortion campaign was over and committed suicide in their prison cells. The mission instantly established a global reputation for GSG-9 and its commander, Ulrich Wegener. Their performance became the gold standard for specialized counter-terrorist units worldwide. The success of the 100-hour ordeal provided a concrete demonstration that a highly trained surgical strike could end a high-stakes hostage standoff without the government yielding to a single terrorist demand.